Okay, awesome. Okay, so this program is brought to you by UHS Events, right? And I'll be presenting today. It's on succulents and resiliency. So I'll be going through a slide, the slides. Let me, the overview of the presentation is what is resiliency, resilience of a succulent, the anatomy of a succulent. That'll be an activity for us to participate in, and then lastly, how to build resiliency. So first of all, what is resiliency, right? We're all resilient. We all have the ability to be resilient. Here's a definition. This is provided by Psych Central. When faced with a tragedy, natural disaster, health concern, relationship, work, or school problem, resilience is how well a person can adapt to the events in their life. A person with good resilience has the ability to bounce back more quickly and with less stress than someone whose resilience is less developed. Everybody has resilience. It's just a question of how much and how well you put it to good use in your life. Resilience doesn't mean the person doesn't feel the intensity of the event or problem. Instead, it just means that they found a pretty good way of dealing with it more quickly than others, right? So a lot of us, I think students are very resilient, especially people here who work in the housing community, um, staff on campus, everyone involved in the community here on campus at Cal Poly Pomona all have some form of resiliency, especially in the time right now. And I think it's a great topic to talk about and to discuss because, again, we are all resilient. We are all continuing to move forward and continuing to push on, right? Especially in this time of, there's health concern, there's, different issues that are coming up, either at home or, in school with our work, with different relationships, right? There's different stressors on those different things in our lives. And it's our resilience that allows us to adapt to these things, right? And so it's important for us to continue to exercise those things and build resilience in our life. And again, this will carry on, for the rest of our life beyond this current situation and into other situations where, it might not be easy to handle and, to get through. Here's a quote by Maya Angelou. I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it, right? So I think that's a powerful quote. It's a beautiful statement, right? Because it is important to continue to change, to not just remain the same, to experience things and to let them be a part of us, but not to let them beat us down or, reduce us, into something less. If we need to take those things that we go through, um, this situation right now is very difficult, but we can grow through some of these things and thrive through these things, right? Thriving Thursday. um, yeah, and we won't be reduced by it, but grow through it. So I think that's a wonderful quote to share. And so, right, why a succulent? Sometimes it seems like, oh, a succulent is not a good example because, they're kind of sensitive. They're sensitive plants. If you have any of you ever cared for a succulent, you'll know that you can overwater it very easily. A lot of times succulents only need the amount of water of like an ice cube. And so it's easy to overwater it, especially when you see, oh, it doesn't look like it did just a week ago, But succulents are very sensitive plants. They can be easily neglected because we think, oh, well, they can survive anything, So that's something that they do survive sometimes is our negligence, right? But they do manage to adapt and survive different conditions that, like, say, a head of lettuce wouldn't be able to handle, And so I think succulents are a beautiful thing, they're oftentimes they're desert plants and just looking at their structure, if you can even look at this succulent here in this presentation, you'll see that their leaves are a little bit thicker than most plants, and it helps them store water, for desert conditions, but even succulents now are a very popular house plant, and houses generally don't have the environment of a desert. And so even then they're still able to adapt, to a cooler climate, or even to, less sun, um, less a different soil structure. There's a lot of things that go into plants. And so yeah, so how does that relate to us, right? um I think it's important to recognize that, like, even ourselves, we can be viewed as succulents, right? We have different structures, we have different designs, we have different aspects to us, and we all might not be from the same soil, from the same ground, from the same environment. We all come from different places, right? For example, for myself, I grew up here in Pomona, and recently I did my undergraduate at UC Riverside, and so I uprooted myself from this area and I moved out to Riverside and spent a couple years out there, right? And I found myself adapting, changing, and beginning to appreciate, the different environment that I was in there at UC Riverside, and I began to thrive. I began to learn and to grow and to, begin to spread my roots right into different areas. And so I think that's a wonderful thing. And if anyone wants to contribute to that, like if anyone has any thoughts on that, feel free to share.
So yeah, I do think that's interesting about the connection, the succulent. If you like overwater it, that could be equally problematic. So I think that's something like I can compare that in my work in dealing with students. Is often students will, if they get in trouble or if something happens, they'll look to their parents to like resolve it for them. And like parents obviously love their kids, so they want to assist, they want to help out and to remove whatever those obstacles are for them. But I often feel like then that student doesn't become empowered in their own education, and like in their own journey in many ways. Like, and so that's sort of where I can see like the overwatering
Hmm.
would create a situation where you're not as resilient to change, or like that situation where maybe your parents or your family unit can't step in to help you out, and what do you do at that point in time? And so I definitely think as an educator, one of the things I'm tasked with is to create those opportunities for student growth and to cultivate leadership
Yeah.
so that folks can take on that themselves and learn how to um, do that on their own. So empowerment is huge and cool. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, definitely. And I know from my own experiences as well, like as a student, going from community college to undergraduate and now into my graduate program here at Cal Poly, being uprooted and constantly changing environments and constantly changing, housing, different things like that. It's easy to neglect my own self care, to neglect my own body, my own health, my own emotions, different things like that. And then oftentimes when it's in between, like in to breaks, sometimes it's I can be I can overwater myself in terms of self-care, right? And become like start to feel lazy, or like not to do my fulfill my responsibilities, and like that's also harmful, right? There's like a balance, right, between these things. And I think that's something that that's beautiful about taking care of something else like a succulent or a house plant. You realize that these things require balance and care and attention, that it might teach you a lesson, about balance, or about taking care of things, and or yourself even. And so I think it's interesting to see, how succulents can teach us about adaptation. It can teach us about, surviving through different situations that might not be, easy to experience, And so, yeah, awesome, awesome. So this next part, I'm going to ask for a little bit of participation. This is a piece of a zine. I screenshotted a zine that was shared to me from our care office at UC Riverside. The director there shared with me a zine about succulents, and um, here's a little activity they created called the anatomy of a succulent, right? And this is where a lot of the analogy comes into place, right? We can look at the different leaf structures, the root structures, right? The soil itself, as the environment, right? And then for here in this example, this is how we, take time to be mindful and to be, to help build our resilience. And this is a small activity. You can choose to participate right now or do it at, while watching this session. Um, or later on, whenever you have time. But this is looking at this succulent, right? There's different things that happen in the care of a succulent. There's the plant itself, right? And so for this section, it's three things that I appreciate about myself, right? The plant is just itself with no water, no soil, nothing, right? There's things to be appreciated without, the care just by itself. It already has certain qualities that can be appreciated, right? And then looking at the roots, three things that ground me in who I am, right? And so a lot of times we think about when we talk about our identities, right? We say, "Oh, my roots are in this," or even in our in our professional lives or in you know our education, it you say sometimes like our interests, my interests are rooted in this experience or are rooted in this, and so um, that's something to think about. And then the water section, right? That's something you're adding into this, right? And so three self-care things I will commit to, right? Um, this is something that's powerful because again, it's coming to accountability. We have to be accountable to ourselves to take care of ourselves and to ensure that we are building our resilience, right? And in order to do that, we have to be, committed. And so we're going to take some time to go through these different sections and just to think about the different sections, right? If you would like to, just chime in, maybe we can each give something for each section. So yeah, let's take some time to do that. We'll take about 30 seconds to a minute for each section. Let's do 30 seconds, and then we'll start with the roots, right? We'll start at the base of it all. And so, yeah, if you could just think about, okay, what three things, what's something that grounds me in who I am, in my identity, right? Let's think about those things.
There are many things that determine your identity, your your values, your principles, your thoughts, your personality,
Hmm.
your beliefs, like your beliefs in various different topics.
Yeah. So would you like to share one of the things for you, for yourself? What keeps you grounded in who you are?
One thing is being determined,
Hmm.
not giving up.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, for myself, one of the things that keeps me grounded in who I am is my community, right? Yesterday, I was able to join a webinar that actually Maria joined as well. It was a talking circle with some of the Native community here in Southern California and like across the country. We were able to get some participants to join in, and it was an awesome experience. Just to reconnect with some folks that I recognized and some new folks, and yeah, it just helped me ground myself in this time, right, with the Native community that I'm a part of. So I think that's one thing that keeps me grounded.
And to add, community is definitely one of the roots that I have. And then family and friends, which are obviously members of that community, but could be separate in their own. But especially my family, they're hilarious, but
Mm-hmm.
they've known me the longest. So I feel like I always know that I have a home and I know that I have people looking out for me. no matter what happens, like it's okay if I fail.
Mhm.
And so I think they keep me going.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, so let's look at the next section, plant, right? Three things that I appreciate about myself, right? Sometimes it's kind of hard to do this, right? To think about this. But I think it's valuable to think about right now in this time, when our focus is on so many different things, but we need to take time to appreciate ourselves as well, right? I can start this section. One thing I appreciate about myself is, my positivity. I usually have a positive outlook, and I usually am able to, you know, kind of manifest, those positive things and positive experiences in my life because of that kind of outlook and that just view on life. And I think that's what I appreciate about myself.
Having conscience is something to appreciate about oneself.
Thank you.
I say one of the things I appreciate about myself is that I'm very open-minded, and I think that is why I go to events like this, and I really look forward to any type of activity that gets you to think, reflect, and share, because I get so much out of listening to others and trying to walk a mile in their shoes and see the world from their perspective. It's great to learn, to celebrate the differences, and also the things that we can relate to and bring us closer together. And yeah, it just makes me feel really blessed to be able to do that, and even to continue to connect to folks through having things like this and the internet.
Definitely. Definitely. Okay, so the last section, thank you for sharing, by the way, is three self care things I will commit to, right? Water. Um, we need water. Plants need water to grow. A succulent is a desert plant oftentimes, but it still needs water. It still needs care, right? And the same way for us, like we're tough, we're strong, but we're still sensitive as well. We still need self care. We still need to care for our bodies, our minds, our spirits. Um, and yeah, so one thing I'm committing to is just taking time to reflect each day, like how my day was, to look at the positive things, to look at even the negative things, but just to take times to reflect on those things and sort through them, emotionally and mentally. Anyone else would like to share as well?
Keeping hope, that is helpful.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you.
And for me, I think, not to just shameless plug our Mindfulness Mondays, but I really appreciate having that space. And not just that, but I mean, like the work that goes into creating that space is also time for self care. And I really love being able to share things I'm passionate about and that have helped me. So it's like, like multiple avenues of that are just awesome, like the research that goes into it, the participation, and so I commit to continuing to do that all of the days and not just Mindfulness Monday.
Hmm. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, those are great opportunities, to even start off the week, right? Take some time to be mindful. But yeah, feel free to join us, Neri, for that one on Mondays at 11 a.m., I believe. So I'm gonna move on. So you can do that, with a group of friends, with your family, with yourself. You can constantly go back to it because I think um, we're constantly growing, we're constantly changing, right? As we learn new things, as we discuss different things, right? We're constantly learning, we're constantly growing, constantly evolving. And I think it's awesome to constantly reflect on different things. And so yeah, this is a great resource, to just take, it's simple, just to take some time and reflect. Yeah. So this is my last slide, but it's a little bit more to chew on here. Um, for me, so I found an article and it was talking about how to build resilience, right? This is from the American Psychological Association, right? And so it went through different things, I try to name the sections a little bit more relevant to this program, right? So I have grow your roots, water yourself, root into the soil, and get some sunshine, right? And those are build your connections, foster wellness, find purpose, and embrace healthy thoughts. Sorry. Um, yeah. So looking at the first section, right? Grow your roots and build your connections, right? I think this one sometimes is difficult, especially right now. Being social distancing, and different things like that, quarantining, isolating, not really socializing too much physically. But I think it's important to take some time, because again, our roots are, the foundation for our identities and different things like that, and how we function, with others. So build your connections. So prioritize relationships, right? So I think it's important, when we think about like our different friendships, our family, how our relationships with our families, um, our work relationships, different things like that. It's important for us to prioritize those things, making sure that those things are helping us, that they're not just being detrimental, that they're not, taking away from our experiences, but that they're helping build us, and helping for us to grow, and for us to be happy, be healthy, and so prioritizing those things, investing in the right relationships, right? Making sure that, like, for myself, um, one of my relationships is, with my family, making sure my mom and my sister, that I'm in contact with them, right? And making sure that that relationship is still strong, and that, because I don't live with them, I don't see them every day, but that, I'm constantly connecting with them. Join a group, right? A lot of times, um, at least here on campus, there's hundreds of groups to join. But even in other spaces, right, there's different groups that have this, similar identities or similar interests or similar, religions, different things like that. And I think it's important to find people who you can connect with on a deeper level, than just, oh, I'm a fellow student, or, oh, you know, I'm associated with Cal Poly in some way, there's different ways, different groups, different ways to connect with people. And I think that's important, luckily for myself, I have some of these things for myself. I go to the Native American Student Center. I mean, I don't go there physically now, but, I'm a part of that group, and I'm a part of the UHS events team, and so that's another group that helps, helps me grow my roots, right? Looking at the next section, there's water yourself, right? So foster wellness, making sure that we're taking care of ourselves, right? That's kind of what that last activity was talking about, just a small section. um, Taking care of your body, right? For a lot of us, that looks different. For some of us, that's exercise. For some of us, that's eating right. For some of us, that's just, taking some time to relax, taking some time to, breathe. And so, that goes into practicing mindfulness, again, like we're have our mindfulness Monday series, and we're trying to practice mindfulness, especially in a time where, we can be focused on so many other things than, taking some time to pause and to breathe and to be mindful of what we're doing with our time, what we're doing with, this situation. And yeah, again, and then that ties into avoiding negative thoughts, right? It's easy to let in negative thoughts right now because a lot of media, is spewing negative things or anything like that. And um, it's easy for that to creep in and to take over, and, to be very pessimistic about our situation and different things like that in our lives, right? But it's important for us to avoid those things, not not necessarily just to dismiss them, but to, not to dwell on these things, not to, you know, um, stay stuck on these negative thoughts, but to look at different things, look at positive things, looking at, you know, looking at the situation differently from a different perspective, right? So, and feel free to ask any questions or chime in whenever you'd like. Um, but to the next section, right? Root into the soil, right? So find purpose, right? This one was a little interesting, right? Because you would think, okay, like I'm trying to, take care of myself. I'm trying to get through this situation. I'm trying to, get through this stressful situation or through, these different stressors. And how am I going to take time to help others and, do these things, be productive or all these other things, right? But I think there's some value in that, in finding purpose, and helping others, right? Some taking some time to, not just focus on yourself, because sometimes that could lead to selfishness, Um, a lot of times is like uh, there's this like notion of individualism in our community when sometimes that's great, it is important to take care of yourself and be an individual to express yourself, but it's also important to build community, and there's no individualism that leads to community, so in order to build community, right, is to help others, right, to focus on other situations as well, but again, there's a balance, right? We don't want to delve too deep into other situations. We don't want to start poking around and probing, and doing all these other things and trying to overstep our boundaries and things like that. But yeah, like finding a way to help others, is a healthy thing to do, being proactive, um, starting to do things that are helping the situation, that'll prepare us, for future situations as well. Learning to be more flexible, things like that, right? Move towards your goals. I think this one's an interesting one because it seems like, oh man, like this is difficult to do anything, right? To be productive, to be focused, to do all these things, right? And to move toward my goals, right? But all it takes is a little bit, just a little step. And I think this is important for us, especially in this situation, to like take some time and reflect and see, okay, what do our goals look like now in this situation? What are our goals? Are they the same goals, or are they different, and to move towards those things, not to just stay stuck and wallow in, like self defeat and things like that. So I think that's important. And lastly, look for opportunities for self discovery, right? Um, Again, take some time to reflect. For myself, I know at our mindfulness Mondays, that space has helped me digest some emotions that I've been feeling that I know that otherwise I would just drown it out by playing video games or watching anime or watching TV shows and movies, Um, there's opportunities, right? Like in this time, in the mindfulness Monday sessions, or even on our, before bed, when our thoughts are racing, take that time to meditate, to focus, and, discover things about ourselves. Sometimes they're not good things, but it's better to be aware than to ignore, and again, be proactive, and be, prepare ourselves for future, situations. And lastly, get some sunshine. I like this one. Um, Sometimes, when we get stuck inside the house, I know it does affect our thoughts and our emotions. But yeah, getting some sunshine literally and metaphorically, um, in this situation is embracing healthy thoughts. Keep things in perspective, right? Again, like this situation's tough, and we can build our resilience by keeping those things in perspective. That it's sure we didn't do well today, okay, but we have tomorrow, and it's always small steps, and then accepting change. This is a big one. Things change all the time. I know for myself and Maria, when we came into this situation, things are changing every day, as we sometimes hourly. you know, as we got more information, from the directors and like from administration on campus, we had to learn to accept change and kind of roll with the situation, and luckily we've been able to maintain a hopeful outlook. We've been able to, continue to program and provide space for, students in the community, um, and I think that's been helpful for us, to be resilient as a team, and to be resilient as, housing services, as staff members, and just as people in general. I think it's helping us grow through this time, for future situations, for future stressors. And then also learn from your past, right? For some of us, we've been through situations, traumatic situations, stressful situations that have impacted us, right? And it's important to reflect and to learn from those things, right? To learn from some of our previous situations, like how did we handle that? How did we react? How did we, you know, um, move on? How do we do things? I know for myself, like some of my situations, I try to stay in the pain of it, and just hold on to the pain of it, and it would just eat me alive. But as I learned to grow and I became more resilient, right? Um, I learned to not dwell on those things. I learned to, practice some of these tools, practice some of these things to become more resilient, to grow from those situations, right? Yeah. So if I think that's the end of the presentation. If anyone wants to share anything about resilience or what they think, but here's our contact information, right? Our email address is uhsevents@cpp.edu, and our Instagram is cpp_uhsevents. But yeah, if there's anything else that anyone would like to share, that's the end of the presentation.
I just want to say thank you, Panda. One, because I really appreciate having you on the team throughout this. Definitely helped to deal with the change, having you're part of my root system now here at Cal Poly. So I
Yep.
appreciate you. And thank you for sharing this presentation. Very clever and creative to make that connection between succulents and resiliency.
Thank you. Okay, well, that's the end of the presentation of the program. If you want any of the resources that I have concerning resiliency, I have an article on horticultural therapy. Feel free to email us, or follow our Instagram and DM us there, and I can email those things to you. I'm adding the email into the chat box here, and then the Instagram as well. Yes, thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful day. Join us on Monday for Mindfulness Mondays at 11 a.m. Go to our Instagram. It has a link tree there with all the Zoom sessions. Look at our YouTube channel, right? It has our recorded sessions there as well. And look forward to the newsletter tomorrow. We'll have a recap of everything and what's coming next as well. Thank you so much.